So you have heard about the 5 teams we like. That was in a previous video that is linked down below. Now we're going to get a little bit negative. We're going to talk about 5 teams that we dislike. And I think I'm going to start it off with probably our heaviest hitter on either list. When we were coming up with the teams that we do and do not like, there was one team that I thought, and I was not brave enough to say out loud, my co-host here, Matt, was unafraid, and that is the Alabama Crimson Tide. And when he said it, I thought, okay, so it's not just me.
I think there's a lot of people that kind of just see Alabama as, okay, it's Alabama, they're going to be there. And there's a really good chance that they just might, but they were much more talented last year, especially offensively, especially at quarterback. And that was a 10-2 football team.
Yeah, and you might say, oh, they had close losses. They had a couple wins they didn't deserve.
Oh my gosh, the Texas game for starters.
Texas, I mean, in my book, might as well have been a loss. If Quinn Ewers was healthy, they were going to get run out of that stadium. A&M, they should not have won, and that's more pathetic than losing to Texas by a mile.
Yes, especially last year's A&M team.
And they should have lost to Ole Miss. If Lane Kiffin calls a run play, Ole Miss wins that game.
It's that simple. And I look at the excuses that are used to justify why Alabama was in a close game with A&M, and I look at the team that they've got right now, and I'm like, very interesting that your biggest excuse might be your starting quarterback this year. It's not good.
So that's kind of the number one question with Alabama this year is going to be their quarterback situation. Bryce Young's gone. They're bringing in a new offensive coordinator. You might think that's a good thing, but it's Tommy Rees, who I wouldn't say he's impressed me at any of his previous stops, and I wouldn't say that I'm impressed by any of their quarterback options.
I think Ty Simpson's probably the best of the 3 moving forward, but does that make him the best of the 3 from the beginning? And that's going to be so interesting, is does Alabama differ from what their style recently has been, which has been attacking vertically, mixing in the run. Like, they still run the ball super effectively, and they've done it in different ways depending on who's the running back. They were comfortable giving Brian Robinson 30 carries a game. Jahmyr Gibbs probably should have touched the ball more last year, but they incorporated him in many different ways. And I think that's going to be something that I really, really watch to see if Tommy Rees can do, is understand all of the complexities that his roster presents. He's never had an embarrassment of riches like this talent-wise.
No.
And the funny part is, talent-wise, this is the worst Alabama offense we've seen probably pre-Sark. And that's insane to think. Is it going to be Ty Simpson? Is it going to be your 5-star recruit? Is it going to be Jalen Milroe, who we saw last year, who looked incredibly raw, has the ability to develop, but he's not going to win you 10 games? Or is it going to be Tyler Buckner, who transferred in from Notre Dame? There's that Tommy Rees tie there, but I was not impressed with him last year.
No. Might we even see this team look a little more like the old Nick Saban teams, where they just want to play defense and run the ball at you? I mean, they're talented up front. Jace McClellan is a very good running back, and it's Alabama, they're always going to play defense. But in the current landscape of the SEC, where there's Tennessee's and teams that are liable to score 45 points on you, can Bama win a slugfest like that?
And that's the biggest thing, is we saw them adapt their style, and them adapting in style to the modern offense is what has really made them such a dynasty that we will look back as probably the definitive dynasty in all of college football history. Can they do it again right now? And that's the thing, is, can this offense be what it needs to be, or will they look very cookie cutter and very exploitable? And that's going to be the biggest thing, is because their defense is going to be a top 2, top 3 unit in the country. Their defense is insane. They're going to carry them through a lot of rough patches. And we've seen Alabama teams win national championships with basically the 2 of us at quarterback.
Yeah.
But you can't do that in college football anymore.
If Bama has something going for them, it's that this is one of the easiest Alabama schedules I've ever seen. Texas is coming to Tuscaloosa, as is Ole Miss, as is Arkansas, as is Tennessee, as is LSU. their toughest road game is A&M or Auburn. But I still think with the questions at quarterback, playing an SEC schedule, I mean, if Alabama loses, 2 games, they're not getting in.
No.
And I think
Not a
that's
chance.
a very distinct possibility this year. And the other thing with recent Alabama teams of the past couple years is they've just been so un-Saban-like. They take dumb penalties, they make mental mistakes, they lose assignments. It's not like they haven't been physically equipped to win more games than they have been. It's that at the worst times, they make very, uncharacteristic mistakes for what we've known Alabama to be.
I think they're probably the team to keep tabs on this season, just off of what can they do. Because if it goes the way that Saban teams usually go, where you have those doubts early in the season, things go well, by about week 4, you're going to be shown, okay, this team's going to play in the college football playoff. But if they sputter a bit, that Texas game is really interesting because you're bringing in a future SEC team into Tuscaloosa. What can they do? Because they have a lot of answers, or they have a lot of questions to answer, rather, with how they played against Texas. And Texas has done nothing but get bigger, stronger, older, more experienced at every position. That game is going to be a real proving ground for this Alabama team.
So now we're going to move on to a team that, I talked about Alabama having a favorable schedule. We're going to talk about the Louisville Cardinals, who by most metrics have the easiest schedule in college football this year. They got a new coach in Jeff Brom. They finally got the guy they wanted. I believe Vegas has their win total at 8.5, and we are in agreement that we're taking the under. This is a team that plays in the ACC and has avoided Clemson and Florida State and North Carolina, and I'm taking the under.
I can't believe this team's favored to win preseason every single game on their schedule. Because
when you look at the schedule, I can. But when you look at Louisville's roster,
I'm not a believer in Jack Plummer.
No, I like Jeff Brom. Loves to get creative on offense. He comes up with some great stuff. Catches defenses off balance. I don't like Louisville's roster right now.
I don't either. And my biggest question is, will they be able to utilize the running backs that they're going to have at their disposal the way that they're going to have to, because they're going to be leaning on these guys a lot. And if we've seen anything from the Purdue teams in years past, like, Brom he's a lot of things offensively, but one thing that he kind of tends to do is he leans away from the run a little bit at times. And if it weren't for Devin Mockabee being like kind of undeniable last year, I don't know if it would have been any different.
For this year, I don't love Louisville's outlook. And a lot has been made of how easy their schedule is. But if you look at it, it's not like these games are unlosable. Notre Dame coming to Louisville, I would favor Notre Dame. I actually think it's kind of crazy that Louisville is favored in that game preseason. They're at NC State, they're at Pitt, they're at Georgia Tech, they're at Miami. I don't know who Louisville is supposed to be, but they can't lose all of those games. I think it's unlikely that they lose all 4 of them, but I do not think it's impossible.
And that's my thing is, like, they get Duke at home, but if we saw anything from Duke last year, it is that that's not an easy game. Really, anybody to play. They were so consistently solid last year, and then, at Miami, I can't believe they're favored preseason to win that game. I get Miami's not Miami, and especially not what people thought Miami was going to be last year. But you have to go to Miami to win that game. Good luck. Like, there's 4 losses I see.
Kentucky at home.
Like, they're not beating Kentucky.
I think Kentucky's a better team than Louisville, and a lot can happen in the 11 weeks leading up to that game. But right now,
absolutely.
I don't know. I think Louisville.
I think they lose to one of the Virginia teams.
It's incredibly possible. So I think our dislike of Louisville is kind of powered by Vegas and some of the college football pundits, how high they are on Louisville. I don't think they're going to bottom out and win 4 games, but
God no, they'll win 7.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of middle of the road programs, and like this isn't, I don't mean to sound like I'm disrespecting Louisville here, but like this isn't like top flight program, especially even in their own conference. This isn't Miami's, Clemson, Florida State. They're not throwing outrageous money at transfers. I have a really hard time buying into a team built on transfers at this level. Will it make their floor higher? Sure. We don't know what that ceiling is going to be. Football is such a team sport to a fault that I don't know if we are going to see them have the success that their transfer portal success indicates.
So from Louisville, we're going to transition to another Big Ten West team, which we had a fun discussion about the Big Ten West in our 5 teams we like video when it came to Wisconsin. On the other end of the spectrum, we are talking about PJ Fleck's Minnesota Golden Gophers. This is a team that lost every single starter on their interior O-line. Several of them, including the center, John Michael Schmitz, was very good. Tanner Morgan, gone. Mo Ibrahim, gone. They're losing a lot of experience off an offense that was kind of held together by paper clips and Mo Ibrahim's legs. I like Brevin Span forward. I like some of the transfers. I'm not into what PJ Fleck has built at Minnesota, and I think this is the year where they kind of bottom out. The boat springs a leak, so to speak.
I 100% agree with you. We are kind of in late stage Fleckabilism here. Things are starting to waver a bit recruiting wise. Things that he kind of built off of the back of Tanner Morgan and Mo Ibrahim is just, like you touched on it, it's not there anymore, and you're going to be inserting pieces and hoping that they're going to work. Like Sean Tyler at running back is going to be transferring, and you don't know what you're going to get out of your running backs this year, and you can't expect him to be Mo Ibrahim. And even as inconsistent as Tanner Morgan was last year, their quarterback situation is very, very up in the air. I would say they probably have one of the worst quarterback situations in the Big Ten. Like, are we banking on Calic Manis taking over and leading them?
No.
I can't see it, and especially not in that division. Like, that division, you still have to play Iowa's defense, Illinois' defense, Wisconsin. You are not winning those games. And if they pull one out, I think it would have to be as ugly as the Big Ten West can get. And that is my issue with PJ Fleck, is that seems to be the only way he can win football games.
Yeah, and if you really look at it, I mean, Minnesota is not exactly a recruiting hotbed, and they're not a school that exactly thrives on the recruiting trail. PJ Fleck has been under recruiting even by Minnesota's historical standard.
It's crazy, considering.
And the players they're losing, like Tanner Morgan and Mo Ibrahim, have been there forever. Now this is an entirely new kind of, they're going to be playing a lot of inexperienced players for the first time in a while at Minnesota. And the other issue I have with Minnesota is that the draw of the Big Ten schedule was not kind to them.
No, not even a little bit.
They get their crossover games, they get Michigan and Michigan State at home, and they go to Ohio State. Plus, in the non-conference, they're playing at North Carolina and Drake May. I mean, it's a nightmare schedule. It's a bad team on paper, and I can't see them winning more than like 5 games.
Yeah, I feel like 5 games is like, that's kind of my ceiling for them. Not even like middle. That's not my median guess for them. That's like my ceiling for them. Nebraska week 1. You're going to find out.
It's funny.
A lot about Minnesota.
This could be a Minnesota team that jumps out to like a 4-1, possibly even 5-0 start if they can upset North Carolina. But that back half of the schedule where they're playing Michigan at home, they're at Iowa, they're versus Michigan State, they're versus Illinois, they're at Purdue, they're at Ohio State, and they're versus Wisconsin. Man, I do not see a lot of wins on that schedule.
They're going to be fighting for their life for bowl eligibility.
And in year 5, year 6 of PJ Fleck, that's not where they want to be.
No, and it's especially not where they thought they would be, given the success that they had seen with Tanner Morgan.
Yes.
This is where we are. This is where we are. Nobody wants to go play.
They had
20-degree home games every year, I suppose.
They had some good years, and they failed to build upon it, to build any type of sustainable program. I think PJ Fleck. I just think he's on his last legs in Minnesota, and if this season gets as ugly as I think it might, he might not make it through the year.
At least they didn't give him $96 million.
That's right. I was too good of a person, did not want to be a homer, so Michigan State is not appearing in this video. But I am thinking it.
State. it's all we're thinking. Michigan State could be so bad this year that they weren't even putting on this list.
But now Michigan State fans can get a little chance to laugh because the next team that we are going to talk about is TCU, who were in the playoff last season. They beat Michigan and made it to the national championship, got absolutely swamped by Georgia, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about TCU this year. On paper, you might look and say, oh, favorable schedule. They don't play, they do play Texas, but they get them at home. The problem with, I don't think a favorable schedule exists in the Big 12 because, as has been covered extensively, anyone can beat anyone. The Big 12 is an absolute wasteland. Nobody separates themselves from the pack. Even TCU last year was pulling out miracles to beat Baylor and Texas Tech. We're talking about a TCU team that is losing an incredible amount of production at a program that does not recruit at the level to seamlessly swap in new talent. And they lost offensive coordinator Garrett Riley to Clemson.
Is that the biggest blow? Guess we'll find out.
It's him or it's Max Duggan.
Obviously, you lose
and Quentin Johnston.
Finalist. That's huge.
Quentin Johnston and Steve Avila.
I thought they did a really good job patching up their receiving core, like bringing in JoJo Earl. Like, that's talent. Like, whether he didn't work out at Bama or not, that's a very talented player, and that's going to be a huge boost for them because it was not looking good after Johnston got drafted, and it's kind of funny that they are going back to the guy that Duggan Wally pipped last year.
Yes.
with Chandler Morris. We're gonna find out what Chandler Morris has got. I don't think he's bad. He's pretty solid.
He'll be a perfectly fine Big 12 quarterback.
Absolutely, and like this is by far the best team on this list, like of teams that we dislike, of these 5 teams.
I don't think it is. I don't think they're as good as Alabama.
That's fair.
I like Alabama a lot more than I like TCU. And it's nothing like, I'm not hating on TCU just because they beat Michigan. I just think for a program at that level, it's going to be really hard to replace that amount of talent all at once. I mean, I believe they lost Kendre Miller. I know they lost Trey Hodges-Tomlinson, who's a tremendous player. They're the linebacker that murdered Michigan, who suddenly his name I can't think of.
They have a lot to replace.
Yes, and unless you're recruiting like Alabama year in, year out, I don't think you can bounce back from that and be expected to come even close to the regular season they had last year, which was also peppered with a lot of luck. I mean, in the regular season, they were getting boat raced by Kansas State before they had 2 quarterbacks go down.
And that's my thing with TCU is, though we don't like them this year, I think this has the potential to be a little bit of kind of a blip on their radar.
Yes.
Because of realignment. And when things realign, there's a really good chance with what Sonny Dykes is building there, they're a top dog in the Big 12. I just don't like them this year. And they brought in Trey Sanders, JoJo Earl, Tommy Brockermeyer from Bama. Like, I like what they're doing, building pieces on offense, but I mean, even like I touched on with Louisville, trying to completely replenish your roster through the portal is a really hard way to find success consistently. I still think they're going to be very good. This team, I think, could be 8 or 9 wins good. And that is no disrespect to Sonny Dykes especially, but it's so hard to replicate what you did a year ago. The college football gods do not like you 2 years in a row. It's a proven fact. And to try and get them on the side of you the way they were last year, luck.
Here's where I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I don't think this team is 8 or 9 wins good. Maybe just because it's a Big 12 schedule, but I think this might even be the type of team that, like, inexplicably loses week 1 to Colorado and gets the entire college football media extremely hype on Deion Sanders before we find out that neither of those teams are very good.
I think we were more excited about that game when he got hired than I am
Yes.
now. I don't think that game will be close.
Probably not. And Colorado, if they weren't so bad for the last 3 years, is a team that could very well be on the teams we dislike list. But I'm looking at Kansas State, at Oklahoma versus Texas, at Iowa State, even at Houston. I don't know that I love TCU in any of these games. But I guess time will tell.
Big 12, man.
Time will tell. They could easily retool and run their way through the Big 12 and be right back where they were last year. But on paper,
SMU would be a hilarious little rivalry that would build there. Who owns Fort Worth, even though it's clearly TCU.
For now, the ponies will rise again. All right, and that brings us to the fifth and final team that we dislike for 2023, and that is the Florida Gators. You can't see it, but I am gator chomping as we speak. Anthony Richardson and Osiris Torrance, two key pieces off a offense that actually still wasn't very good last year, off to the NFL. They replace Anthony Richardson with Graham Mertz. If I was on camera, I'd be staring into the camera like Jim from The Office right now. I'm just going to straight up ask it, do you think Billy Napier is the guy for this job?
No. And I don't. It's so definitively easy for me to say this because Florida has gone from a school, and I just look at one game on their schedule that I am, for the last 15 years before last year, was so confident they were winning every year, to now I don't think they win that game moving forward at all. That is the Tennessee game. These are two schools with new hires that are moving in such different directions to me right now. Florida, they have their major influx of NIL money. I think that's going to help them kind of stabilize the ship enough under Napier, but I do not like this team, and I do not like him as a head coach of this prestigious program. I don't think this is the guy that's going to lead you into where you want him to. That just won't happen. I don't think it's happening at all.
I mean, like, Florida is the type of team where their offseason looks good on Twitter, you know? They pull in a whole bunch of transfers. They recruit at a high level with their NIL program that sent Jaden Rashada packing to Arizona State because they promised him money that they didn't have. But the on-field product, I mean, Anthony Richardson got drafted in the top 5, and he looked awful at Florida. He looked terrible, and everyone kind of agreed it wasn't his fault. It was Florida's fault. So what that tells me about Florida is that they are in big trouble this year. They play a lot of good, organized football teams, which those are two words that I would not use to describe the Florida Gators as it currently stands. They go to Utah. Utah's looking for revenge. I don't think Florida keeps that close. They play Tennessee at home. They play Tennessee at home. That's a nightmare. Tennessee is going to the swamp, and I would not be surprised if that game's over at halftime. I mean, you're looking at Kentucky, at South Carolina, versus Georgia, at LSU, versus Florida State, at Missouri, versus Arkansas. Does Florida win 5 games this year?
They're going to be fighting for bowl eligibility because this is a team, correct me if I'm wrong, they lost to Vanderbilt last year.
Yeah.
And that was at home.
I think it would have been at Vandy.
And that game was at Vandy. That's right.
This year they get Vandy at the Swamp, which is a revenge game, which is not what you want to hear when you're playing Vanderbilt.
No, that should not be a thing.
That should be a given. And for Florida right now, beating Vanderbilt at home is not a given.
No, not even a little bit. And that's bad. Really bad. Because even in your worst years, outside of Urban, it's like you still had at least your layups. And it's going to be really interesting to watch Florida possibly be that layup for some teams. I think they've got talent. I think they're going to have a really solid offensive line, as they always do, it seems like. But losing week 1, they're losing in Salt Lake City. Absolutely.
They're going to get hammered.
They will start the season 2-3, and the only reason that they will win 2 games is because it's against McNeese State and Charlotte.
They're going to be If they beat Vanderbilt, it might get them to 500 through week 6.
100%. And I'm not even super high on Kentucky. I'm just high enough on Kentucky to at least be a 7-8 win, ceiling 8-win team. I don't think Florida will play with Kentucky that well. I don't think that what Kentucky does defensively is everything I have watched Graham Mertz struggle with at Wisconsin. He is not a good quarterback.
No.
Even though Paul Christ's system there makes him a lot worse than what he actually is, I don't even think the best of Graham Mertz is that good.
Well,
Like,
even if Wisconsin's system was bad for him, what have we seen about Florida's offense? A quarterback that just went in the top 5 looked awful at Florida last year. They could not maximize. They could not maximize Anthony Richardson's talents.
A super raw passer for sure, but like you have talent outside. You have
Then run him more.
You have guys you can throw the ball, and then he's his ability to run the football. Graham Mertz isn't giving you that.
No, Graham Mertz has one dimension, and it's not that good of a dimension.
Can't even remember if Jack Miller's there. He's definitely not giving you that. You can't just take castaways from the Big Ten, especially a team in the Big Ten West, and expect to win games in the SEC. They're going to be fighting for bowl eligibility, and I cannot see a way.
I'm not betting on them getting bowl eligible. I like their defense. I do. I like the transfers they brought in. R.J. Moten from Michigan, Cameron Jackson from Memphis. I like the linebacker from Ohio State. I think their defense will be good, but you're in the SEC, and you're asking a lot of a defensive unit that is good, not great.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a team for like a quarter and a half last year that played with Georgia, and even then, you can't make minute mistakes in the SEC against teams like that.
And when Florida makes mistakes, they're not minute.
Oh,
Florida has meltdowns.
There's 6 teams on their schedule that I'm confident if they have meltdowns like they have in years past, which we both know watching Graham Mertz at Wisconsin, he has a lot of them. There's 6 teams on this schedule that will rip you apart if that happens. It's Utah, it's Georgia, Arkansas, LSU, and Florida State. Those 6 games, luck, man. Like, have fun, because it's going to be a really, really tough sledding for them this season. Maybe 5 wins.
Yeah.
5 wins.
There's no team in the country that I'm more out on than the Florida Gators. And I don't know that Billy Napier can survive a 5-win season, even with the 2024 recruiting class he's pulling in.
Anybody can do what he's doing recruiting-wise at Florida. That's my opinion. Granted, I understand, like, different coaches are better or worse at recruiting than others, but with the influx of money that they have for NIL, I think they're flexible enough to where they can get a better coach. It's going to take a big year this year for me to even think that Billy Napier can do anything as a coach, and like 8 wins, 9 wins would be like, oh, okay, that's really solid given where I thought they were going to be with Graham Mertz. I can't see a world where they get there.
No, I don't even think they come within. I don't even think they get close. So that is going to wrap up the 5 teams that we dislike. We hope that this hating was a nice palate cleanser from all the nice things we said on the 5 teams we liked video. Be on the lookout for more college football content coming up. We will be previewing Michigan and Ohio State. As I've said, I'm a Michigan fan. Matt is an Ohio State fan. And we are going to do our season previews for Michigan and Ohio State in a little bit of a different way. So be on the lookout for that. Like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. Follow BULLYBALL, follow Matt, and those links are going to be in the description below. We will see you next time that we decide to hate on various college football teams.